Thank you very much. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sally Gillespie, who is the president of the coalition. Many of you know Sally, but this event would probably not be possible without the amazing amount of energy, creativity, and commitment that she has, and for the group that has come together to put this forum on for all of you. So, round of applause for Sally.
And I add my words of welcome to all of you tonight, and a special thank you to our candidates, because if people did not file for office and express their willingness to serve, we would not have a democracy. So we really, truly are grateful to all of you for giving of your service. And I thank you for coming tonight, because by your presence, you are indicating that you are going to go to the polls as informed citizens. And that is so important. And we hope tonight that the coalition will prove to be enlightening, so that you can make decisions that come close to your own values and view of our city. Tonight we are going to in fact, the candidates have their questions in front of them. There are 5 questions. We are not going to take time tonight for the candidates to speak about their personal backgrounds, etc., because every candidate is really technologically astute, and they have beautiful websites with all their information and great pieces of literature, which I'm sure you were able to pick up as you came in. And incidentally, after the speaking, they are going to be back at their tables where you can ask them questions and find out more about them. One person said to me tonight, we're going to get to the meat and potatoes, right? And I had to agree, because after all, the way our city goes, the way it grows and changes, as it must do if we're going to have a dynamic city, really depends on the land development regulations we have, the comprehensive plan we have, all of the policies that are in place. And unless we know how our candidates feel about those policies, we cannot possibly know how they're going to direct our city and the way it grows and changes. And so tonight, I think our candidates are going to enjoy sharing with you the views that they have about some of the basic elements in how our city grows and changes. I'm going to ask you to applaud only after each speaker has finished. I know it's so tempting to give a big round to someone who said something with which you really agree. But remember, they only have 5 minutes to answer 5 questions. So that takes time, and it changes our focus. So please applaud after they speak, if you will, and tell them how great they are at their tables after the speaking has concluded. At our dais, you have the candidates for mayor. And when they are finished with their 5-minute presentations, the candidates for the City Commission District 1 seat will take their places. Do not leave, please. You want to hear these wonderful candidates for the commission seat. And they will have 5 new questions. So we will cover 10 issues tonight during the course of the forum. Without further ado, I'm going to call upon Jeannie Flynn, our webmaster and our secretary, and she will take the program from here. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Sally. If you ever wanted to know what the person behind the curtain looked like, it's me. I answer all those emails and post all those things on our website. How this is going to happen is we have a timekeeper. The timekeeper has signs for start and 1 minute warning, 30-second warning, and stop. When the stop sign goes up, the microphone will be cut. So we're going to get you out of here on time. Numbers were chosen for the order of the speakers, and the order is Chase Herbig first, Joel Page second, Lisa Martin third, Mark Beckwith fourth, Ed Ellison fifth, and Russ Owens sixth. When you see the start sign, start. We are asking that they stay seated because they have the written questions, and we want them to be able to focus on these questions that they only receive when you receive them. There are copies in the audience for reference purposes. I will now read the questions for the mayoral candidates. The mission of the New Smyrna Beach Residents Coalition is to preserve the unique charm and special character of our city by providing a path for residents to communicate opinions with a united voice on issues relating to our city's quality of life. The executive board, with input from our leadership group, asks each of our candidates for mayor to address the following within the 5-minute allotted time. Number 1, under what circumstances should variances be granted and by whom? The Planning and Zoning Board or the City Commission? Number 2, how do you view our city's special zoning categories such as hospitality and PUDs, planned unit developments? Number 3, what steps can be taken to preserve the city's small town character as we grow and develop? Number 4, what specific steps can the City Commission take to ensure a high level of trust between the City Commission and the citizens of New Smyrna Beach? Number 5, what is your opinion on developing lands that lie within the floodplain? The questions can be answered in any order that you would like. There are copies of the questions in the audience, and I think there were enough for people to share. So with that, we will wait for the start sign.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally. Let me get my thing on here. There we go. Can you hear me? Thank you, Sally. Let me just make a comment about coalitions and alliances. There are two current ones in our city, and they are critical to the watchdog of issues and concerns of our citizens. They've been very effective in communicating and being a part of the city. Citizen oversight is important to the greater good of where we're going to be heading in the future. I will answer the first question, and most of it will blend in, the next 4 will blend in as I speak. Under what circumstances? Well, currently, of course, variances are, in fact, approved and granted by the P&Z board. One of the things about variances is that you have to qualify. There's 5 conditions, but remember, the conditions are only caused by someone else. In other words, if you buy a piece of property and you move in and you want to put a pool in, but you can't put a pool in, but you need a couple extra feet. It's a condition that perhaps was caused by the prior owner or builder or whatever. It's very difficult, of course, to qualify for the 5 conditions. Now let me talk a little bit about the preserving our city. It is extremely, extremely critical that we don't see sprawl. We know that developing this community must be done so with great care. The land use management must be used with great care. We do have, in fact, the comprehensive plan. We have land use rules, regulations that must be adhered to. One of the things over the years is that we've kind of gotten off of that a little bit. I think we've gotten a little bit less managerial on some of those, because we have to manage these properties, we have to control it, and we have to inspect what we expect, of course. We do know what's happening out on 44, and I think it's just like the moratorium right now. We have a moratorium, which is unfortunate because we should have never gotten to that point. However, it's a good thing that we do have it, because buffers. If you'll look at developing property and keeping some of the character to it, that is infinitely critical. We have the environment to be concerned about. We have so many properties within the city that can be repurposed. I repurposed an old building, 1950 building on SR 44, changed out the sewer, or the septic tank to a sewer. I did a lot of landscaping, HIG Insurance. Not here to promote them, but I just want to say that I promote, or rather repurpose that building. These are some of the things that we want to see. We don't need, and if you bring things inland, we can infill. US 1 is a corridor. That's a very critical corridor. We're looking at the CRA funds. We have great opportunities to fill in there. And it does need to be improved, as we did on Canal and as we did on Flagler Avenue. But remember, some of this wetlands, that's a very sensitive area. In fact, 21 years old, I joined a group on ecology. I got my first introduction in ecology. And let me also say I'm getting a 1 minute ding. So let me try to quickly, let me take the high level between the trusted cities. Let me tell you something. I think that the city, like when we have board meetings, they have board meetings on Tuesdays, right? You get to go in and you get to respond for 3 minutes. I think that's ridiculous. I think that we have to get out in the community. As mayor, you can be assured that I'm going to be out in the community working with you. We have to get out in the communities and in touch. We need to listen. The biggest problem right now is we have no trust in the government. Transparency is very critical. We need responsible fiscal policy management. And I want to make sure that we understand that land use management, all the way from quality, not quantity, but we have to begin to look at historic preservation as well. There's a lot of issues that we must do.
Hello everybody, my name is Joel Page, and as you know, I'm running for mayor of New Smyrna Beach. Under what circumstances should variances be granted and by whom? Now, the city has advisory boards that are volunteers mostly, and they get, I think they last for 4 years, their placement on the boards. And we would hope that, and the commission is the one that places people on the boards, we would hope that our city commission places people on the boards that are professional and know about planning and zoning. I don't know if we really have that sometimes, but I think the ultimate thing about variances, I think the commission should have the final word on taking advice from the Planning and Zoning Board. PUDs. One of the problems in New Smyrna right now is our growth, our rapid growth, and it's mostly PUDs that are creating this. And part of the reason is that 10 years ago, when we had a downturn in the economy, all these permits were granted for these large developments. And they were never really given a sunset clause in them that would make them, after a certain amount of time, have to go get permits again. And that's why, since the economy is so much better, all these developers are moving in and doing everything at once. And that's why we have an issue with, that's one of the reasons we have an issue with growth, explosive growth. Keeping the small town character. Well, around the west side of the city, that's where most of the growth is occurring. And unfortunately, it's moving into our west side neighborhood. And our west side neighborhood is historically a black neighborhood. Chisholm School was over there, and it continues that way. And a lot of people over in that part of town are feeling that the area is getting gentrified as Pioneer Trail is getting opened up to more development, and that whole area is changing. Certainly, zoning might be a way to slow that down, as well as more impact fees, larger impact fees, to slow down the developers and to create a better infrastructure for some of this development. Level of trust. That's actually how I got into politics in New Smyrna Beach, because several people, and Lisa was one of them, we were feeling that there wasn't enough transparency in our city government. And there was a time when we were trying to figure out how we get that. And every city in Volusia County has video cameras and live streaming of all the city meetings, commission meetings, advisory board meetings, and that's what several of us decided we would push for. And I, along with another friend of mine, spoke before the commission on this and actually got into an issue with our city manager, who apparently doesn't like streaming and the citizens knowing about what's going on at all these meetings. And that's what first got me into politics here in New Smyrna. Well, a floodplain's not a good idea to be building on anyway. That's question number 5. Coastal Woods is a good example of that. If you've ever been up past that area, you know that there's water there all the time. It doesn't have to rain. It doesn't have any issues like that. There's water there. That is a floodplain. When it rains there, because the ground has its, I guess, a large amount of clay in it, it's not like the beach side where, it rains, it goes through the sand and gone. That part of town has a different geography. And that's it.
Hi, I'm Lisa Martin, and I'm a candidate for mayor. And I want everybody to sort of squirm for a minute, because you've already been sitting for a while, so wake up. We're all here. The first thing that I'm going to bring out is that I am prepared to be a full-time mayor. The questions that have been posed here are deep, and they require thoughtful answers, and they require the kind of time and dedication to do the research to give you the answers and solutions you need. So if we come to things like variances, well, if we have good land development regulations, variances aren't needed very often. If we have to plan for them, we have to understand them, and by the way, variances should go away if the property is sold. I have seen many times where a variance is granted that thereby increases the value of the property. The for sale sign goes up the next day, so why did we give them a variance? Plus, there is great difficulty with enforcing it. When you look at the city with the vision for where we want to be long-term, we want to be an economically stable community with a variety of economic resources. We need to look at our city both from birth to grave, and we need to understand that we need to be able to weather the good times and the bad. So what does this mean in terms of the vision and our unique character? Well, if we look like every other city in Florida, and if we decide we're only a tourist economy, that means we have, in my estimation, spent our capital. Our capital is in our local unique businesses, our capital is in our unique neighborhoods, and we must maintain them to keep the value in New Smyrna Beach, as well as to diversify with a broader base of education so that we can weather various economic storms and just be a more interesting place to be. I'd like to do a lot more with our university and our art community. We talk a lot about the beach and tourism, but we don't talk nearly enough about a very rich arts community we have here that comes with a pretty high socioeconomic demographic that we'd like to explore. Overall, if we look at our land development regulations, our comprehensive plan, decide that we want to maintain our unique character while we broaden our economic base, we then put together a good land development regulation, comprehensive plan, and city charter to help us get where we want to be. Right now, we're in a piecemeal situation, and it is creating a lot of oops that we're going to have to keep dealing with in the future as we go forward. Now, we talk about the level of trust between the City Commission and the citizens of New Smyrna Beach. Personally, I think the first thing you need to do is feel very, very confident that your elected city official is working for you and you only. As a full-time mayor with no PACs, no big money behind me, just the residents' support, you know that when I make a decision, I'm thinking about the residents and not a special interest group. I think that's important. And it seems like a bit of a non sequitur with the coming in with the floodplain costs us too much. I'm a big return on investment kind of person. What's it going to cost, the total cost of ownership? We get $1 in property tax for building on wetlands. It's going to cost us $100 in flood control later down the pike. Not to mention, those wetlands are where our water is held. And we need that water for our long-term development. I'm sure there's a more up way to end the conversation other than saying that there is a $15 million reverse osmosis bill coming our way within the next 5 years. But I find that a little frightening, and I'd like to get into the commission and see what I can do to mitigate that possibility. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's on? Great. I'm Mark Beckwith, and I'm a candidate for mayor as well. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight. It's an honor to be sitting here in front of you, and I'm humbled by the number of people that are here. It's fantastic. Let's get down to it. Question number 1. What circumstances should variances be granted and by whom? Planning and zoning or by the City Commission? Planning and zoning grants a number of variances all the time that can happen on residential properties that really aren't that big of a deal. And I don't think things that are, I want to move my sidewalk to my house, to my front door, this direction, which is 1 foot out of code. I don't think the City Commission needs to make that decision. I think planning and zoning does. If we're talking about a piece of property that impacts the greater good of our community at large, if it's a piece of property out on State Road 44, if it's a piece of property that's a very visible piece of property, planning and zoning should make recommendations to the City Commission, but the City Commission is the one that should decide if that variance is granted. Special zoning categories. We have land use laws or zoning laws so that people, it's like a contract. When you buy a piece of property, it has zoning requirements already set up for it. It has land use capabilities already set up for it. In a perfect world, all the time, that would always work. We don't live in a perfect world. So our special zoning categories are there for a reason. They're there to protect the land the way it is. And from time to time, we should potentially grant a variance to make that property better. Not to necessarily make it more profitable for the person that's buying it if it's a home or if it's for a business. We should always be looking to improve that property so we can use it in its highest and best use. What steps can we take to preserve our small town charm? There's a lot of things that we can do. When you talk about development, we can make sure that, just like the new Hyatt Hotel that's coming over on 3rd Avenue, you know, they're building in the Florida vernacular of architecture. It's not going to be some big modern structure. It's going to look like Florida should look like. We need to make sure that we're putting down the right landscaping so that the way we see our environment today exists going into the future. We need to use native plants. We need to have as big a buffer as we can on roads like State Road 44 so that we keep the beauty of our gateway coming in here. The other things that we can do to preserve our small town is to really pay close attention to our environment. Our beach, we need to protect our beach. Our river, we need to protect our river. And we should be striving for things like on the North Mosquito Lagoon, getting that water upgraded to Class 2 status so that when people come and develop, their storm discharge has to meet higher requirements that are currently required. High level of trust. Trust comes with good communication. If you see me every day, well, which that's not a good thing to say because you won't see me every day if I'm mayor. But if you see me on a frequent basis and we communicate with each other, I think our trust level will increase. We do need to have transparency in government, and I'm not afraid of that. I've got nothing to hide. You should be able to look at everything that we do, and most of that information is available online. And we need to take that a step further and just make sure our commission communicates with everybody more frequently. Lands within the floodplain, if you're going to develop there, you better make sure that we're getting the stormwater requirements that we need so that our aquifer will continue to be replenished and that we don't have flood problems. And we can do that. It's just more expensive.
This is a hard act to follow. My name is Ed Ellison, running for mayor, and I am real proud to see how many people care enough about their city to turn out like this. God bless you. You know, who should make the decisions? Well, my brother hit it on the nail head there. It's there's too many little decisions. There's variances all the time. And you know, you're not paying us enough to sit down and go through all those. That's why you have a planning and zoning board. But on the big ones, that's when we need to bring the city into it, and we're your first line of defense for the city. How do I view the special zoning categories? Well, I don't know a whole lot about, you know, the hospitality to me is part of our main industry is the real estate industry and your tourism, and we're Florida. It's where everybody retires to. They used to call us the waiting room. So, do I need to say more on that? I mean, so, and I'm real happy to see some of the assisted living facilities coming in. They're good looking. They're straightening up some really trashy looking areas in our town. And that's what I've always wanted, is a longtime resident growing up on 44 since it was a dirt road, and my dad being in development of New Smyrna. I've just always had a passion for what New Smyrna was going to look like and be. When you talk about the quaintness, you know, well, we used to have red brick streets. We used to have a fishing fleet at the end of Canal Street. That's all gone. So our quaintness is around our usability for ourselves and our tourism. And, you know, the economy will go and the economy will come. But I think as far as tourism goes, it's a good business to be in, because when things get bad, people sedate themselves. They're going to want to go relax somewhere, and we're going to be there for them. And you know, there we are with our small town character. I would like to see a lot of things done to bring back, you know, how would you do that? You know, there's a lot of memorials. You know, I would love to personally try and raise money for a memorial at the end of Canal Street for that fishing fleet. I was 8 years old when my dad died, and the chief of police son and I skipped school one day and went down there and were fishing. And I met a college student that was off for spring break, and he got me working on a shrimp boat. And that old shrimp captain took me under his wing when nobody else, my church didn't even come and take me under their wing. And I spent 2 or 3 years down there as a young boy going on shrimp boats and really getting to live a piece of a really quaint community. You know, how do we get the high level of trust up? It's become trustable. You know, just I always liked most of you remember Ross Perot, and when he was running back in the early 90s, and he said he already had his. He wasn't in it for the money or anything else. I was pretty sure why I knew why he was in there, but he said some things that caused him to have to get out, because he was going to put himself in the presidency, which wasn't why he was there. But he says, whatever I can do for you, he says, you know what power the presidency really has, but whatever I can do for you, let me tell you this, I will do. And my name's Ed Ellison, and that's what I'm here for. I've been a part of taking care of New Smyrna for a long time, and I'm kind of in awe that God's got me showing up right now. I'm kind of wondering what's coming. And the thing about the floodplains, yeah, we've always been a floodplain. It's everything we've got is floodplain. So we've got to make, you know, allowances and work around it. That water's always been out there, it always will. But is what we got to worry about is the salt intrusion coming underneath. And our main water, by the grace of God, comes from the aquifer out of DeLand, the St. Johns River. So we've got great water. Edgewater hadn't had that kind of luck. So I'm waiting on the stop sign, but
My name is Russ Owen, and I'm also a candidate for mayor. And as Ed said, tough act to follow. Many great points. And thank you all for being here. You know, this is a testament to just what a critical time this is for New Smyrna Beach. And that's why I think everyone is here, and that's why I think everyone is there. So thank you all. On the issues, variances and who should be granting them. You know, the name says it. They're variances. We have rules and structure that are in place, and this is a request to vary from those. I think those should be done in highly special circumstances that would create kind of extreme hardship. I would have much more deference for, you know, the small private landowner, the example someone gave. You know, certainly those are things that I think you know, would be more amenable to. Otherwise, the rules, the ordinances, the codes, everything was codified for a reason at the time, and I think we should be extremely careful with how those are done. And I agree with some comments made earlier. The City Commission should certainly be the final voice on those things. Maybe not every little thing, but the City Commission should absolutely have the final say, be the final voice on variances. And bottom line is, I think there should be far fewer of them, especially the major ones that impact all of us. How do I view the special zoning categories, hospitality PUDs? Again, it's in the name. They're special. They were put in place for a time, for a special time, and I personally think the time has come. I'd like to see us have less of those. I'd like to see us roll back some of those. I agree again with something mentioned earlier, kind of with the variances. They shouldn't persist in perpetuity. You put things in place for a time. Once that need is met, we move to the next best practice. We move to what is needed today in New Smyrna Beach. And I don't think some of these things is what we're looking for in New Smyrna Beach today. And that kind of segues to the third question: of what steps can we take to preserve the small town character as we grow and develop? And I think that's important. New Smyrna will grow and develop. As much as some of us would like to just kind of press pause. I mean, I have small children. We'd like to press pause, right, and leave them exactly as it is. We'd like to maybe press pause on New Smyrna at some point. I think we're at a really neat point to do that, but we can't. It will grow and develop. So the question is, how do we make sure we're very proud of that product as it grows and develops? I would be for extremely high standards. And that doesn't mean high standards do not kill business. High standards do not hinder economic development. High standards actually can enhance economic development. There's examples of this across our great nation of communities that have held high standards. Sedona, Arizona is probably the bastion of hope for everyone. They held high standards for what their city, their community would look like. It didn't kill business. Business still came, but they're still a product, a community they're very proud of. I would like to see the same done right here in New Smyrna Beach. We can be an example that other communities are pointing to, saying we want to do what they've done. They should be talking to our elected officials, asking, "How did you do it?" And that's what we'll do in New Smyrna Beach. High level of trust between the City Commission and the citizens. As others have mentioned, I think it starts with transparency and communication. I've got nothing to hide as well. I have absolutely no conflicts of interest, and I'm not accruing any conflicts of interest in this race. My most ardent supporters know I'm in it for New Smyrna Beach first. They have a voice just like everyone else in this room would have a voice if I'm elected, but I'm in it for what is right for New Smyrna Beach first and foremost. I think this is probably the most critical thing, because it's very hard to make progress in any setting, on a national scene down to the very local scene. It's hard to make any progress when you don't have a high level of trust between two parties. So this would be priority almost number one for me, is developing that trust. One thing I bring uniquely to that, I think, is my financial background. I think I'll be able to make good inroads into the city's finances, making sure everyone understands what is going on with the city's finances. Lastly, on the floodplain, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And that's probably more important than ever, because some people are focused on cutting everyone we have down. I think that we can't undo what has been done, but we can stop future damage. And my question on developing lands that lie within the floodplain is why. We're facing high water already.